Uh, Mr. Menon, you could answer this. Why doesn't China just take Taiwan? I mean, this is like an ABC question, but look, they have built their military power. They have shown that they can use, in our borders. Why don't they just walk in?
Well, three problems. One is, as we saw on our borders, they may not fully achieve what they want. Two, it involves killing fellow Chinese. And the Civil War was over a long time ago. I mean, it's been 70 plus years, 72 years since the Civil War. And for any Chinese leader to be seen killing fellow Chinese without provocation doesn't really make sense, just because he wants to be in the list of greats as the one who reunified China. I mean, that isn't sufficient. And I don't think they know that they can actually win. They're not sure how the rest of the world will respond. There is ambiguity there, deliberate, on the US side. Japan actually has been speaking much more publicly about how they don't want to see a change in the situation. So, you know, they have reason to be careful. But I think the point Andrew's making is that at some stage, the gains of reunifying China, completing this work, Mao Zedong managed to make China stand up, found the PRC, Deng Xiaoping made us rich, and that our present leader managed to reunify the whole country, finish the unfinished work that Mao and Deng couldn't do. I mean, maybe that attraction will override rational calculations. And that's the real fear, which is why I think Taiwan is an exception to most of the other calculuses. And I think we have to keep watching it very carefully.
Now, Dr. Small, India had, along with the US, Japan, and Australia, formed the Quad, the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue. And for a while, it just meandered along, and only in the last 2-3 years, it's gathered the momentum that, and in the first in-person meeting happened just 2 weeks ago, the first in-person summit that's there. Now, has AUKUS taken the thunder away from Quad? Is Quad just another talking shop now? And, there's very woolly notions that experts call of the greater world good, and left all the security issues aside.
I wouldn't oversell AUKUS, really, in the scheme of these things. You have a submarine deal, which one can assess, and then you have a kind of sub-Five Eyes arrangement. The Five Eyes have been attempting in the last period of time, and again, particularly conditioned by what went on with 5G, to kind of expand the scope of the kinds of issues they look like, beyond the sort of intelligence sharing and other traditional means, to look at some of these questions around industrial policy cooperation, some of these other things, forms of technology sharing that can only take place between a small number of trusted countries. But we're now even in a sub-Five Eyes space on this, because New Zealand was more uncomfortable about some of this. There were some constraints on the Canadian side. So this is a smaller subset of a framework that's been in place for a long time, even if it's doing some new things. The UK role, I don't want to denigrate, but in the scheme of US strategy in Asia, if I'm looking at the countries that really matter most, I'm going to put India and Japan markedly ahead of the UK role. The Quad is still going to be...
You're not British.
The Quad is still going to be quite one of the central structures on the US side. There is a level of investment of energy and commitment there. What you saw in the last summit meeting was, of course, this proliferation of different working groups and new areas, and this can sometimes lead to some dismissiveness about it being a talking shop. I think lots of these other areas, what the new architecture is on these questions is going to be critical. This is where a lot of the emphasis on US-China policy, US-Asia policy is going to go. It's not just going to go on the classic military balancing piece, however important that continues to be. It is how are you able to stitch the other partners and allies together comprehensively in all of these other domains as well. And there's a kind of, and you're seeing all of this now done at leader level as well, which is important. You saw this not just with the Quad, but in the exchanges that were taking place in Europe when Biden had his visit, the G7, NATO, other frameworks where China and some of these questions were not dealt with as a top-tier issue in the same way. And now they're being dealt with openly, essentially, between leaders of the world's democracies, and that translates into some quite different outcomes, even if we're still with the kind of the new areas of focus of the Quad and some of what we're seeing transatlantically still in the early days on all of that.